Then we shifted gears and got into some shoulder snakes and body tracing. Making basic loops with the poi, where you're actually waiting for the poi to be swinging in the direction you're about to move your hand, and then moving the hand so that it overtakes the poi, and the poi makes a little loop-de-loop like this. These are the basic building blocks of flower patterns like antispins or inspins. And they're also the basic building blocks of all these sort of linear moves, linear isos, and things like that. They're also the basic building blocks for snakes, because what we're doing with snakes and body tracing is putting a loop behind or in front of the shoulder and snaking it around the shoulder to come out the other side. So we practiced 4 basic entries into snaking positions. The first one was, when I look at my hand, it's like I'm spinning in reverse, the poi is coming down and towards me, and I'm essentially going to like stall or make a loop behind my shoulder, turn my torso so my elbow and shoulder come out in front, and then pull the handle, which is leading the poi head, out, like so. The next one is from this cross position coming back, tucking it up under the armpit, and this is actually probably the hardest one. Not only do I have to flick it up under my armpit, but I also have to flip it up and back to the back plane so that Ari has momentum to get to the back. And this ends up being the poi head leads, and then my body and the handle follow. And then you can put those together on this side. On the other side, if I'm starting behind my back, my hand is spinning forwards, it's coming up behind me, falling down away from me. As it comes down and in towards me, I'm going to tuck it in my shoulder. My elbow and shoulder turn forwards, and my handle drags the poi out. And the last one is from this, my body's twisted in a cross position. I'm going to sort of tuck the poi down behind my shoulder and back. So I have to give it that little flick of momentum heading back behind me. And I turn my body after it and send it out. And so those two combine together nicely. From there we can do different combinations like these sorts of things. And we also worked on this more wall plane facing one, where we're sending one under the arm, one over the arm. They both go back at the same time. There's an important distinction. The cross points are going back at the same time. It's not like split time weaves where one follows the other. They're literally going back behind my shoulder and out in front at the same time, but while snaking. So from the front to the back, it's a little tricky because you have to do that flick. I'm flicking this under my armpit and behind, flicking this over my shoulder and behind. Then my elbows and hands follow after it and everything unwinds. From the back, I am bringing them in close, but I'm trying not to get the poi to cross my spine so they don't actually hit like they just did. And as that happens, I drag my elbows and hands and handles out first, and that drags the poi heads out in front. When continually snaking these, I find it useful to actually lean my body so that my shoulders are at diagonals, so that it's a little easier to shoot right into those over and under the shoulder pockets. From here, you isolate around there. You can really sort of isolate in front a bit, but I feel like it still swings out just enough so that you can really flick it back in, because you have to get it all the way around your arm and flick it right back under your armpit or you'll lose momentum. And then from there we also played with turning that. From the front, you start to go into this position, but you don't fully flick this one behind you, per se, because you can actually turn your body into it. So it gets in my armpit by virtue of me turning through it. I still flick the other one over my shoulder, turn around a 180, and then pop out from there. We can do the turning behind the back version, which begins and ends behind the back, and it's really hard.
That's what she said.
Okay, we did the 4-pedal anti-spin weave, which is essentially a 3-beat anti-spin weave, which really, in my opinion, isn't actually a weave, it's just very similar. One of the key things that you want to practice, once again, is creating that frame or pocket between an arm and a poi, and that's where you're shooting your other poi. From this position, this poi not only anti-spins up and comes down, but I'm directly aiming to like shoot it right down behind the other one in that pocket. Then under and across. And this does the same thing. So this is how to do it like one hand at a time. One hand is just spinning static, and the other one can sort of anti-spin through. But for the full effect, where both are anti-spinning at the same time, your arms are moving at the same time, they're hitting cross points at the same time. Unlike a normal 3-beat weave where my cross points are right out pointing at the horizon and both poi keep hitting the same cross point more or less, with the anti-spin weave, one is making a pedal that crosses up top, and then later on you're making a pedal that crosses down at the bottom. So it looks a little like this, where you're trading both a top and a bottom cross point. And that's why I think it's not exactly a weave, because weaves only have one cross point. Isolated and stuff like that. Anything else?
Shit pile stick.
What's that?
Shit pile stick.
Fuck shit
Fuck
stack.
shit.
Yes, in summation, you take some shit and some shit, and you've got a fuck shit stack.
You throw it on the wall.
On top of itself, ninja.